Hi everyone, hope you're well. Today we're going to be doing another episode of the Round Table. Usually we have at least a guest or two who join us to talk about current trends and topics. What I wanted to do today was essentially recap recruitment in 2020 and maybe talk about some trends for 2021 that I personally am going to be interested in watching in. And just to keep an eye on. So look, certainly, COVID has been a bit of a shock to all recruiters and the recruitment industry, as it has with other industries as well. It's been a pretty tough year, calendar-wise, and it's been hard for recruiters certainly to generate the revenue and the consistency of activity and roles to work on to be successful. But it does feel like the last few months have certainly improved and that we're kind of coming out of the dark times, and it looks like there's a lot of activity from a business perspective, from a recruitment perspective, and it's not just here in Australia, it's across the region. We've been active in China, having a couple assignments there, and things are starting to pick up in Southeast Asia as well, which is great. A couple of things we saw this year was definitely more of an appetite for the gig economy or multiple different ways of working, more flexible work arrangements, multiple contracts or multiple roles. Just an adaptability to environments when it comes to employment and recruitment, and that's certainly going to be a trend I think that continues. I do think there's going to be even more of a focus on and an appetite and an interest in virtual recruitment. I mean, our business is entirely based on virtual recruitment, and I think with technology and the capability of tech now, that companies and businesses are a lot more open to this now too, which is great. So I think you're going to see a lot more recruiters shift to this model. It's also a lot cheaper without the overheads in terms of rental costs and associated costs around having an office or renting an office. So I think you'll see that continue. The last few months have been busy for us, as I mentioned, but they've been really specific around technical experts or SMEs, so technical supply chain and technical recruitment in technology. And so specific niche skills in these spaces have been highly sought after. And that makes sense if you think about it, because after the shock of COVID, business or supply chain leaders had to come up with strategies or an innovation or new ways of resolving the constraints or the failures of their supply chain. And so they've been bringing in people with specific skills that they feel can address the issues and to resolve the problems as well. And so we've seen a lot of activity in that technical recruitment space over the last probably 3 to 4 months. I think that's really highlighted and tied into the industrial property space across the region within supply chain. So anything to do with warehouses or DCs or facilities, anything to do with where the facility is located, what type of technology is in the facility, whether it be software, automation, AMRs, robotics, whatever the case may be. And skills like DC design, automation implementation, your network optimization and network modeling, trying to get the essentially the DC or the facility that services your customer in the exact right location, trying to get closer to the customer as well, trying to reduce that last mile delivery cost and time as well. I think that's pretty buoyant right now, that market. There's a lot of focus in this space. And again, that makes sense because of the shift from bricks and mortar to e-com. That has been happening for years now, but COVID's really put the gasoline on top of the fire. It's been the accelerant to speed that process up. And so that shift isn't happening, it's here. We all live in a new omni-channel world now. And so if you were behind in terms of having no digital footprint or physical asset footprint to be able to cope with an omni-channel world, then you're scrounging and scrambling and trying to find advisory services that can help you get to where you need to be. If you were a market leader and at the forefront, you've probably seen a surge in demand for your products or services. And so now you may have the infrastructure that can cope, but you're probably needing more capacity. So it's not that you've been behind, but you just need more capacity. And again, that ties into not only the industrial property space booming at the moment, but also the technical skills that are needed in this space. Skills like we talked about in the automation, candidates are really at a premium and they're setting their own, essentially their price, and they're highly sought after. So those are kind of just some of the trends we're seeing, specifically, not only these last 12 months, but specifically the last quarter or last 3 or 4 months. Trends for 2021. There's a couple interesting things to talk about here. I think certainly from an Australian perspective, the trade tensions between Australia and China are going to be really interesting to watch. How does that affect Chinese nationals working in Australia? How does that affect Australians working in China? How does that affect suppliers who feed to either country from a commodity perspective, from a finished goods perspective, from a services, from a 3PL and logistics services perspective? Does that get cut off? Does it escalate to that point? I certainly hope it doesn't, and I'm sure most of us think that way as well. But it'll be really interesting to see how that kind of develops over the next 6 to 12 to 18 months and the impact it has on the region and also on supply chain. I think because of the sheer market size of China and the impact it has, it's really going to put some pressures on supply chain around produce and short shelf life and perishable goods that we ship overseas, that we export to China. I think those supply chains are going to come under immense pressure. So something interesting to watch. I think the freedom of movement of talent is another one. Being an expat, living abroad, I've done it, was certainly seen as, a great milestone in your career or an accomplishment in your career. But with COVID, our candidates going to be as willing to travel internationally. Our clients going to have the appetite to hire foreign talent. Is it going to be seen as such a pristine option now? I know here in Australia, we've seen probably close to over 100,000 Aussie expats return from Europe, North America, from Asia, returning back to Australia. So will that trend continue? Will people be interested in going back overseas for work? Will talent be interested in moving domestically and internationally? Certainly something to think about. Another impact is the regional comprehensive economic partnership. How will that affect the regional supply chain? What does that mean for new partnerships? What does that mean for new models in your networks? How is that going to impact the regional supply chain network? That's something certainly to keep an eye on. Again, I'm not smart enough to know how that's going to have an impact on everyone, but it's certainly something to be aware of. What does that mean for everyone? And then the final trend that I'm going to be sitting on the sideline curiously watching is the decisions and the strategies to resolve the exposure from COVID are being put into place right now. Those solutions have been embedded. They've gone live or about to go live. New systems are being adopted, new ways of working, trying to reduce all of the challenges that COVID had exposed each supply chain and each business to. But if those strategies or those solutions and that change doesn't work, I think you're going to see a trend of business leaders and the top end of town from a supply chain leadership perspective become under immense pressure. And I think you're going to see a high volume of activity when it comes to supply chain leadership roles. So your COOs, your SVP, VP, supply chain director, that level of personnel and talent is going to come under immense pressure if these new strategies that they've designed or implemented or put their neck on the line for that they've suggested, if those don't work, I think there's going to be a lot of pain at that level. I'm certainly hoping that no one loses their job, but I can see a trend with the technical experts being needed right now to resolve all of the problems. And if those strategies to resolve problems haven't worked, the next in line to be changed is going to be the heads of supply chain type roles. So certainly something to keep an eye on. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments section below around what you think recruitment in 2021 is going to look like and beyond. Any comments, questions, leave them in the comment section below and I'll certainly do my best to get to them. If I don't get a chance to speak to each of you or any of you before the holiday period and the break, hope you guys have a great time. Happy holidays and all the best from us at Bastian Consulting. Take care, guys. Cheers.